All right, guys. Let's see here. All right. So now we're moving on to the next section where we have our guest speaker here. Okay, so I'm super excited for our guest speaker. His name is Brian Dorsey, you guys. He is the CEO of the Funding Playbook, and he is actually about to start right now and give you guys the game on how to actually establish this business credit for your entity as well as how to get funding, right? So it's super important for us to be put in a position to where we are using OPM, which is other people's money. We do not want to be using our own money. And so Brian is going to show you step by step how you can put yourself in a position to use the bank's money instead of your own money when it comes to funding your trust and having having the capital to acquire these assets. So I'm super excited. So Mr. Brian Dorsey, you have the floor. Thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited that you are here to pour into the community.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How
Hi.
can you hear me? You can hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Perfect. Good afternoon. Nice to see everybody today. I'm seeing some familiar names and some new names, so that's awesome. Give me 1 second because I am a visual person, so I want to make sure that we have this up for you guys today. It's always awesome to be a part of the 7 Ways community, right? So if this is your first time being introduced to me, if this is your first presentation, you are definitely in for a lot of value. We're going to learn a lot over these next, about 30, 45 minutes or so. If you've seen this before, listen, there's always new gems. There's always new things that you can pick up. So without further ado, just because I do want to, be mindful of everybody's time. This is the Funding Playbook, Funding Blueprint Workshop. So in this, we're going to talk all about, just to kind of, preface this, is that we're going to talk all about business funding, business credit. Now, specifically, the reason I say business funding is because this is primarily going to be business funding, just because business funding and business credit are could be two separate conversations. And again, I do want to be mindful of everybody's time, right? So, really quick, we want to talk about some of the benefits of getting funded, right? And when you look at, personal funding, there's personal funding and then there's business funding, right? So the personal funding is that you could use it for like home improvements, some travel and experiences, some personal development, or even starting a new business. Now, the reason we talk about business funding is because, for one, each business EIN is treated separately, right? Now, this is important because when you're operating as a person or as an individual, you have a social security number. Now, the EIN number, as you guys are familiar with going through trust, is pretty much the business social security number. It's the entity identification number. So you as an individual only have one social security, but you can open up different entities and establish new entities, and they have different EINs. So it's very, very important when we start talking about leverage. The other reason is that when you start talking about business funding, you get access to much higher limits of capital. The reason is because you as an individual, you're a consumer. So institutions look at you as, hey, you're going to consume things that, and the assumption is that you're not going to create an ROI with it, right? With business funding, it's much different. Because you have a business, it's assumed that you have business expenses, right? So because of that, you get access to much higher limits of capital because obviously a business is going to traditionally going to incur more expenses than the personal, right? The other thing is that business credit does not affect or reflect on the personal credit report. So it's important because a lot of people I talk to, they're still using their personal credit cards, or they're still using, their personal name to grow their business. And that's not the most efficient way in order to grow your business. You want to be able to build your business and have the business grow itself, not you putting all of your personal resources into it, right? Very, very important. And then ultimately, accelerated growth, right? You want to put into marketing, you want to purchase assets, you want to create cash flow, all of these things. And so when you get access to business funding, you're able to speed up that process for you, right? Now, really, as we go through this process, right, there's really only one question that really needs to be answered, right? And it's really ultimately, how would you like to fund your business on demand without risking your own money. Everything that we're going to talk about through these, next couple minutes is we're going to show you how to purchase assets and create cash flow without having to risk your own money. And it's very possible. Now, however, you do have to understand a few key concepts first. And those concepts is what I'm going to share with you over these next couple minutes. Now, again, before we really go too deep into it, it's important for me to talk about who this really applies to, right? This is perfect for people who want to access funding on demand. You have assets, you have opportunities, you want to be able to access capital so that you can invest into these opportunities so that you can grow your business, right? You ultimately also want to increase your buying power, right? You can increase your buying power. You can get access to $100,000 much faster than most people could save $100,000. So you get to increase your buying power, you get to increase your leverage ultimately so that you can go purchase more assets, right? And again, kind of like how we talked about earlier, you want to get high limit approvals. We're not talking about 5, 10, $15,000. We're talking 50, 100, $200,000 plus in capital so that you can go in and again, purchase assets and create cash flow. And ultimately, everything that we talk about again is to create more leverage. Now, very important, because again, some of you, this may be your first time being introduced to me. So my name is Mr. Dorsey. I am a funding strategist and a business expert. I have been an entrepreneur since 2013. I did not start this, last year or 2 years ago. I've been an entrepreneur since 2013, which is important for me to say that because time, right? I've seen every bit of the highs and lows of businesses. I've made all the mistakes that really you could figure out in trying to grow the business. I've also seen both sides of earning hard-earned revenue and taking all that revenue and putting it back into the business. I've also seen the other side where I've been able to get funded, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, so that I can actually go and grow my business, right? And purchase assets. So it's important for me to say that because again, I've already made all the mistakes, right? We fund millions of dollars annually. We fund tens of millions of dollars annually, teaching and going through a lot of the concepts and a lot of the principles that I'm going to share with you over these next couple minutes, right? And again, I've already spent thousands. At this point, it's tens of thousands of hours, going through experience, going through the trial and error, correcting all of my mistakes. Ultimately, I've got the experience so that I can bring this information back to you and give it to you without, trial and error. I can actually give you applicable information. Now, if you look over on the left, it's very important. And I love this quote, because a mentor is not someone who walks ahead of you. A mentor is someone who walks alongside of you to show you what you can do. They can do that again because of experience. Everything that I'm going to go about and talk about through this process is not something that I think is possible. It's something that I know is possible. It's something that we do every single day. And it's again, it's a duplicatable process, right? Now, there's a couple different ways. There's an old way and there's a new way when it comes to looking for access to capital and grow your business, right? The old way, like I said, is taking years of research, taking trial and error only to come up with incomplete information, right? You're trying YouTube, you're trying Google. You've got kind of little bit of details. You might be a little familiar, but there's certain little parts, certain little nuances that are keeping you from getting the funding that you're looking for, right? So that's the old way of doing it. The other old way is really trying to earn and save income in order to reach your dreams, grow your business, and support your family. Just kind of how I mentioned a second ago, for most people, they can get access to $100,000 in funding and in capital much faster than they could save $100,000. So you hear a lot of time people like, oh, if I had 1,000, or if I had 5,000, if I had 10,000, if I had 20,000, I could do this. You can do that, and there's a much more efficient way in order to get access to capital so that you can do the things that you're thinking about, right? The other old way is constantly being denied or being approved, but with high interest rates. We want to get you approved. We want to get you the best interest rates possible so that you can, again, create cash flow and obviously increase your bottom line and increase your profit margin. Now, the other old way, again, is using revenue to continually invest back into the business, right? So using earned revenue, right? Earning revenue, you don't really have a lot left over. So all the capital is going directly back into the business. It's working, right? But it's not working very, very efficiently. The new way, however, is really empowering yourself with financial education to take back control of you, your life, your business, and ultimately your future and your legacy. That's the whole reason that you start and build trust, is to preserve your wealth and to create a legacy. That's what this does. It's another layer of financial education that allows you to do that, right? It's an expert level understanding of the banking industry and the banking system in order to acquire high limits of funding, right? And it's ultimately, just like Christina was talking about, it's leveraging other people's money, or OPM, most commonly referred to as OPM, in order to create cash flow, purchase assets, and again, ultimately build wealth. And it's really having a higher status with banks and lending institutions so that you can use them as tools or assets for your business. A lot of people, when they first start this, they're more like a little timid, or they're trying to they think the banks have all the power, but ultimately we have the power, and it's ultimately you want to be in a position where you get to use them to create your wealth, right? Very, very important. Now, there's three categories of clients that I typically work with, right? And it's important that we identify this as we go through this. Now, typically, there are three categories of clients. The first one is a business owner, right? You're a business owner. You might be generating some revenue. You got a little experience, but you're tired of using the hard-earned revenue to invest it all back into the business, right? In order to grow the business. The other part is the multiple, the successful 6, 7, 8 figure entrepreneur already, but they just want to increase their buying power just to purchase more assets, just to create more cash flow, right? More leverage. And then the startup entrepreneur, right? You're starting out, you've got all these expenses, and you're really ultimately looking for a blueprint in order to follow to fund and grow your business. Now, let's get into the foundation of some of these key components, right? So throughout this process, we're going to solve the four biggest problems that business owners face whenever you're looking for access to capital. Number one is properly setting up the business to run like a business instead of a hobby. You want your business to be presented and treated and respected like a business, and not necessarily a hobby, or just some kind of side hustle, right? The other part is you want to be able to find the right opportunities that are ready to support you right now. Every funding process, every funding sequence is not the same. Not every institution looks at you the same. And so it's important for you to understand that, so that you can find the institutions and the right opportunities that are going to best align with where you are currently in order to help you get access to capital, right? The other part is being able to create a proven system to get your business funded with the minimal documentation possible. You don't want to have to jump through all these loops and all these different challenges and all this paperwork that takes such a long time in order for you to get funded. You want to set your business up so it's a seamless process, the most efficient process possible, in order for you to get access to capital, right? And ultimately, it's just kind of how, like I mentioned earlier, it's to make the banks your business partners. I love using the banks as my business partners because they continually love to give me money, but I don't have to give up equity or percentages in my businesses in order to get access to capital. I'm just going to say this. If you have, there's no reason once you go through this process that you should be able, have to give up equity in your business because of finances. If you give up equity in your business, it should be, for other purposes and other skill sets, because we're going to learn how to leverage the banks and get access to capital so that we don't have to go beg somebody else for capital. We want to be in a position where the banks and institutions love to throw us money, not where we have to be, begging them or begging someone else in order to get the funding that we're looking for to grow our business, right? Now, as a disclaimer, some of these, I want to show you what's possible by going through this process, but I have to be, honest and say that past performances do not guarantee future results. But by following the foundational steps of everything that we're going through, this is how you create these results, right? So just a couple examples from a couple different people who are in a couple different scenarios, right? So number one If you look over here to the left, it's called Divvy Bill. It is it's a revenue based business card. So a lot of people think that, hey, I have personal credit challenges. There's no way that I can access business capital. So if you look over here to the left, this person who they got $100,000 approval with Divvy because they were a high revenue business, but they were someone who was always used to earning revenue. They had some credit challenges, right? And so they were always used to kind of like what we were talking about earlier, earning revenue, taking all that revenue, putting all that revenue back into the business. That's how they had been growing their business for years. They had never even thought about, hey, I can go get access to business credit or business capital. Now, by doing this, they were able to go through this process, and we were able to get them $100,000 in funding that they could use for their business, which for them was significant just because they had an extra 100,000 that they could use when they were used to taking all their revenue and putting it right back into the business. So very, very, a huge success story and case study right there. Now, if you look in the middle, one of the biggest lending institutions in the current market and one of the biggest lenders that we use is Chase. Another, misconception is that, someone has a startup business. They just started out maybe 30 days ago, a few months ago, less than a year old. And they're like, hey, my business hasn't been open long enough. There's no way that I can get access to capital, right? This client had, one of those same limiting beliefs. And by going through it and, going through this funding process and duplicating the things that we're talking about, they were able to get a $60,000 business credit card, one approval with Chase. And also this $60,000 came at 0% interest. So they had $60,000 that they could leverage, not paying any interest on it, that they could invest in and grow in their, startup phase business, which was huge. The other part over here, if you look, again, we use Chase a lot. We got a $75,000 approval for one of our clients, one account. They did have an established business, right? But they just didn't really use, really lending major banks or major lending institutions in order to do so. So to go from not really using funding ever, being an established business, having great credit, to getting 75,000 that they could leverage at 0% for 12 months, again, was huge for their business as well too. Now, the next page, if you look at the American Express Business Platinum, one of the most prestigious, assumed to be the most prestigious cards on the market, one of the most recognizable business cards out there. This client, again, by implementing these methods, they were able to grow their card to $100,000 approval limit, right? Very, very important. Now, the other part is when we talk about products, when we talk about the banking industry, when we talk about financing, there's multiple products that you can use. Now, sometimes for certain banks that we work with, we can go to one bank and get two products. That was the case with our client and we use Key Bank. Now, we went to one bank, Key Bank. For them, we got a $50,000 business line of credit and a $40,000 business credit card that they could leverage into their business. We went to one institution and got $90,000 that they could use to grow their business, right? And then the last one we're going to touch over here, this client was, pretty much a brand new, they weren't necessarily brand new. They were about, maybe like a year old. They had kind of exited the startup phase. They had kind of managed all of the, kind of basics, but they were wanting to really invest into their business, scale their business and go to new levels. So we were able to go to another one of our institutions that we use, Citizens, and we were able to do the same thing, get them $35,000 on a business credit card for 0% interest. Right now, the truth is that these results come from having a system in place that makes it easy and predictable in order to fund your business 6+ figures. Now, the reason I say that is because it's ultimately, whenever we talk about this, it's ultimately who this is for, right? This process. Now, who this is for business owners, again, who are generating some revenue but are tired of using their hard-earned money to do so. Now, this is also, again, for successful business owners who are already, generating 6, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, 8 figures plus, but they want to increase their buying power. Now, it's also, again, for the startup entrepreneur who is overwhelmed on how they're going to grow and fund their business. And ultimately, like I said, people who want to purchase assets without having to risk their own money. Now, who is this not for? Because as we talk about who this is for, it's important for us to talk about who this is not for, especially when it comes to getting access to high limits of capital. Now, This is not for people who are possibly looking to start a business or who just like the idea of funding, right? You must have a goal in mind. You must have an idea. You must have a business started, because when we're getting you access to high limits of capital, you need to be able to invest that capital again to create the cash flow that you're looking for. It's also not for people who want to make excuses and complain. We want to give you actionable steps so that you can go through this process and that you can actually duplicate and go out and get, again, access to capital, right? It's not just for, wanting to learn information and, to say good information. We want to give you actionable and applicable information, again, so that you can get access to capital and purchase assets. Now, just as I talk about over and over, this is not for people who are not serious about getting an additional 6+ figures in capital. Now, when you go through this whole process, there's really only two things that matter, right? When you go through all of these things, there's really only two things that matter. And it's, number one, setting the foundation to get, to maximize your funding opportunities. And it's also, the other thing that matters is ultimately when you duplicate this and when you implement these strategies, it's getting high limit approvals. Those are really the only two things that matter. Now, we do this by understanding two things as well. Understanding exactly what it takes to not get denied. And it's also following a simplified process to achieve consistent high limit funding results. Now, give me 1 second, because I just realized this one is out of order. So give me 1 second and I will bring up the other one, because I want to show you guys what it actually looks like as far as the credit. So give me 1 second and I'll bring up the correct one, because I want to talk about the credit base. So give me 1 second. Let me fix this for you, because I want to give you guys actionable information that you can use so that you understand this. Now, let me get back into here, because I want you to understand credit reports. Now, as we go through this process, it's important that whenever you're setting the foundation to get funded, because of what we're going to talk about in here, we talk a lot about business funding. As I mentioned, business credit and business funding could be two completely separate trainings, but through this, I want to show you how to get access to capital and save a lot of the time. So when you do that, you want to, your personal credit, you set the foundation by having your personal credit in order, and you maximize your funding opportunities. Again, everything I'm talking about is maximizing when you understand what a good credit report looks like and how to structure yours. Now, for number one, is that all information must line up exactly across all of the credit reporting agencies. Now, when we're talking about the personal credit report, we're talking about three agencies primarily. There's TransUnion, there's Equifax, and there's Experian. You need to make sure that your information lines up, ideally one name and one address for instant approvals. The reason I'm saying this is because, especially when it comes to the funding process, people don't necessarily, and we talk about it right here in these report statistics, is that the number one reason that people get denied is not necessarily because they're not qualified for funding. It's because their information doesn't match. So it's very important, because these minor clerical errors could be the difference from you, going and getting $50,000, $100,000 plus in funding and you getting a denial instead, right? So it's important, and I want to give you guys a visual. So when you're looking at this on the right side, when you're looking at the personal information, you want to look at the three agencies. So they're broken down. If you look at it by rows, each one is broken down by TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. Over there, it's showing you an example. So when you look at names, the name row, they all say John Doe. It's important for you to note that, because if there's a difference in, let's say, John A. Doe, you have to realize that you're not the only John Doe out here. You're also not the only John A. Doe out here for this scenario. So the reason that you want to make sure that all of your information lines up is to make sure that they actually are getting the correct information for yours. Because contrary to popular belief, people think that we have, scores stored with TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, the credit reporting agencies. That is false. we have data, we have information, names, numbers, addresses, things of that help identify you. And they are data furnishers. They don't hold a score, they hold information. And based on the information that they have, their algorithm generates a score. But we do not hold scores technically with the credit reporting agency. So it's very, very important that you understand that. Now, when it comes time to actually looking to get approved for funding, what does it actually look like? Because again, when you're going through the process, the score, the credit score does not matter. It is only about the structure of the profile and what the structure of that profile actually looks like. Now, when you're again looking at here, when you're looking at the left column, it's all of the factors that are going to affect your credit, right? So there's utilization, there's inquiries, there's payment history, there's credit age, and there are derogatory remarks. Now, if you look at the next column, there's TransUnion, there's Experian, and there is Equifax. Now, it's important that you look at all of these and compare all of these, because when you're looking at utilization, for example, a common misconception is that someone gets a credit card, right? And let's say that credit card has $1,000 limit, just for simple math. A lot of people think that, hey, I have $1,000 credit card, I can use this full $1,000, right? It's available, but you begin to get penalized when you go over certain utilization, right? And so it's important to understand that when you're going through this and you're looking at utilization, you want less than 30% utilization on your accounts. So using that same $1,000 as an example, if you have $1,000 credit card, 30% of that $1,000 credit card is $300. You do not want to use more than $300 at the worst case scenario when you're going through this funding process, right? Because you want to look like on paper that you don't need the capital. Institutions want to give money to people who don't need the money, right? So it's important that you look at the utilization, and it's also utilization per account. It's overall utilization and it's per account. So it's very, very important that you know that. When you're looking at this, the next thing is that inquiries. Inquiries do not necessarily hurt your score overall a lot, but they do show, quote unquote, how credit desperate you are. So when you're going through the funding process, you do not want more than 2 or 3 inquiries per credit reporting agency when you're going through this. Very, very important. Now, because you can have a 750 credit score, but if you've got 5 inquiries within the last month or so, you can have a 750 credit score. You can assume you're going to get approved, but truthfully, you would not be approved just because of those inquiries. So it's important that you understand this. Also, when you're going through a funding process, it's important that you have 100% payment history. Not 99, not 98. You want 100% payment history, because when you're going through a funding process and you're looking for, again, high limits of capital, 50, 100, $200,000 plus, you need to show that you've been able to manage the funding that you've had previously before they will give you new funds. So it's important. Now, credit age, the next factor. Ideally, you want to be an average of 4+ years, right? So it's an average of, you take all of your accounts based on when they were open, you want an average of 4+ years of age, just to show that, again, you have a history of managing the accounts that you have. Now, derogatory remarks, none. No collections, no late payments, bankruptcies, foreclosures, things of that nature. Again, if you're looking for high limits of capital, you need to show that you can manage the capital that you've had previously, right? No derogatory remarks. Total accounts, you don't want 1 or 2 accounts going looking for $50,000, $100,000 plus. You want multiple accounts on your credit report, ideally 10 plus, at least like 5 or 6 accounts. Right now, if you note at the bottom, these are ideal metrics for maximum approvals. Everything I'm going to teach you is for maximum approvals, but they are not the absolute, detriments for the approval. And again, it notes that this process focuses less on the score and more on the accounts that actually create the profile. Now, accessing credit reports, right? It's very important that you can get this information when you understand how to access the credit reports. Now, if you have any issues, the number one place that people get, messed up is in that foundational part, just because they don't even know how to access their credit report and they don't know how to read their credit report. So What we did was we have a system, we have a platform. It's a professional dashboard that you can use to monitor your credit, breaks down all of the information for you. And if you happen to have, any negative accounts or any discrepancies on your credit report, it's also a way that you can address those ahead of time. So if you, just kind of running through this really quick, if you look in here, this is the home page of the dashboard. You would be able to log in. You'd be able to see all of your scores right there, the dates and everything of that nature, right? So this is the home page of what it looks like. Now, if you look on the left, you can see that we're actually clicked on the home at the top. Now, if going to the next thing is that when you're actually going through the process, you want to if you do have any errors, we want to give you a system so that you can actually begin to take those first steps towards getting your credit repaired, right? And so when you do that, if you look over here now, we were previously clicked on the home tab. When you get access to the system, it's a create dispute letter. So if you do have anything, you can see, for example, it lists the accounts, it lists all the information there that could be potentially negative. And for example, if we're looking at the Amex account at the top, if you'll see when we click the next slide, when you click that, the drop-down menu displays, and you can see all of the information that is displayed there for you. And it even gives you your dispute reasons. Now, don't want to take too long on that. I just wanted to give you kind of the basis of what the personal credit report needs to look like and an introduction to the system if you do have any credit issues that need to be addressed. Now, we're going to move more into why everybody is here, which is really structuring the business properly so that you can get access to business funding. So you're going to mitigate the disapprovals and increase the amount that your business gets funded when you understand how to structure your business properly. Now, most importantly, when you go through this, it's important to understand why most businesses get denied, right? Because there's a couple factors and there's a couple minor things that keep people and businesses from getting access to high limits of capital. Number one is fundability, which is ultimately lender compliance, which is what we're going to discuss, which are the data points, how to increase your lender compliance and make your business look like a professional business, right? The other reason is that people need to divorce themselves from their business. You have a personal, you have a business. Your personal needs to have, your own personal information, personal home, personal address, emails, phone numbers. Your business needs to be the same way. You need to have different information for your business so that you can divorce yourself from your business, right? Another reason that people get denied is that they didn't actually structure the foundation for building business credit, which is what we're going to go through in just a second, because again, it's just structure. When you structure your business the right way, it's going to help your business be, perceived and treated much better in the long run, right? Most people also don't know how to leverage their assets or income the right way whenever it comes to, maximizing funding opportunities and going through the application process. Now, you guys have talked a little bit about it, I'm sure, with, the trust and things like that, but you want to get some business credit established with the business CRAs. It doesn't, it can help you a lot faster when your business is a lot more identifiable. So you want to get set up with the business credit reporting agencies as well too. So like Business Equifax, Business Experian, Paydex, IntelliScore, right? Things of that nature. So, and again, you can, by starting up with that and building it, you can put on vendor accounts to your business credit to help establish the business credit and create those net accounts, right? The other reason that a lot of people get denied is because they don't have, open credit accounts with major credit card networks like Visa, Amex, Discover, things of that nature, right? MasterCard. So you want to have open credit accounts with major revolving credit companies, right? You want to have some bank or installment accounts. Ideally, you do want them set up under your EIN, but at least on the personal side, especially when you're going through this process to get access to business funding, right? And the other part, I always put this, not a lot of people talk about this, but especially in today's, economy and in today's system, you want to have an active social media to show that you're actually growing and investing and that you're actually doing your business. It's not going to necessarily hurt you, but it can tremendously help you, especially when it comes to getting access to high limits of capital, right? And when you do all this, the goal is not just to know how to build business credit and get access to capital. It's to get instant approvals. You want automatic approvals with AI and artificial intelligence and computers. not a manual review, that could be by an underwriter or whatever, that could be based on human discretion. Because again, humans can be emotional, they can be biased. We want to put ourselves in the best position possible to get the approval with AI. Now, we kind of talked about this a second ago, the 4 biggest problems that biggest owners face. I'll run through it again really quick. Properly setting up the business to run like a business instead of a hobby, how to find the right opportunities to support you right now, how to create a proven system, get your business funded with minimal documentation, and again, ultimately, how to make the banks your business partners. Now, when you're setting up your business, very important. Obviously, you want to get business funding, you need to have a business. So the very first thing you need to do, you need to have a business name. You need to obtain a domain that is at that business. So for example, if your company is called ABC Consulting, you want to go get the website that says ABC Consulting so that your business is easily findable, right? Going down here, you want to get a business address at yourbusiness.com. So for example, if your business is ABC Consulting and your name is Bob, you want it Bob at abcconsulting.com, right? You also want to get a business phone number. Like I said, you want a personal, you want a business, you want to separate it. Then for this purpose, I know during the trust, we talk a lot about private trust and things of that nature. You can absolutely get trust funded directly. It's a little bit more paperwork to do so. Again, what I try to talk about is leveraging entities, so state entities that your trust can control in order for you to get access to capital. You can do it either way, but again, what I teach is for you to go through and get access to capital with the least amount of documentation possible. So with that, you want to have an entity set up with the Secretary of State. You can do it yourself, or you can hire a third party. You do want a registered agent. You do want to have a operating agreement. You guys have touched about on some of this, especially with registered agents and things like that, to accept documentation on your behalf. You do need to obtain an EIN. It is free. The Dun & Bradstreet you will need, especially if you're going to get into government contracting. Again, you want to establish an online presence, build a website, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, things of that nature. Number 7, you have to open a business bank account. You absolutely have to have a business bank account. I mean, so many people who've been operating their business from personal accounts and mixing funds. You need to separate, right? You have to have a business bank account. And not enough people really talk about this enough, but you want to trademark any of your, biggest business slogans, logos, things of that nature, because when you're getting access to capital, you're obviously getting access to grow your business. You want to be able to protect the business and the assets and the intellectual property that your business does. Now, when it comes to professional look, a lot of this is going to be repeat from what you've learned already, but again, I want to make sure that I cover it. So business address, virtual office, or brick and mortar, right? Home address is a little more acceptable since COVID, but just because there were a lot of home-based businesses, started up, but you really want a virtual office or a brick and mortar. You don't have to have a brick and mortar. If you don't need a brick and mortar for your business, don't get it. Go get a virtual office, which you guys have talked a lot about. Now, lending can be cut dramatically due to a home address. It's not necessarily that it would prevent you from getting capital, like I said, since COVID, but your lending can be cut dramatically because you have a home address. Not impossible, but again, it can limit you. Now, no PO boxes, no UPS addresses, right? You want a virtual office. And then obviously when you do this and you have it set up the right way, your business credit report can be linked to Google Analytics, which just makes the process to verify your business a lot easier. Right now, phone numbers. We use a lot of voice over IPs or VoIPs. You can use Ring Central. You can use Vonage. Those are some platforms. Another one that a lot of our clients use is Call8 with a K, K-A-L-L, and then the number 8. And then when you do that, you want to register your business number to Google and 411. You can do that through listyourself.net. You can also do that through yellowpages.com. Now, when it comes to email, website, and domain, very simple. You can go to GoDaddy, you can go to Google Domains and get access to that information. If you don't want to use, if you want to make your business look a little bit more professional, you can use your name directly, right? But that directs it to you directly. What I typically have people do is have it set up with info at whatever their website is. So again, if it's ABC Consulting, info at abcconsulting.com or contact at abcconsulting.com, right? Very important. Just like this is important and crucial. You want to have a website and Google set up, having those simple things set up can prevent institutions from asking for tax returns and more documentation because it looks more professional. Now, when I mention website, everybody's like, oh, I got to go get, thousands of dollars on this website and pay all these developers and do all this. You don't have to do that. A website can be a simple one-page website. You can go through Google, you can go through Fiverr, right? Something simple. It can be set up in, a day, a couple hours, even some of these sites, just a couple minutes, something very simple. And then again, just like how I mentioned, being active on social media can help your funding, especially when it gets into higher limits of funding. Now, this disclaimer, just like we talked about a second ago, past performances do not guarantee future results. And these are some of the ones that you can see that, again, that we went through earlier. You can see a 50K right there in the middle. It was a 60K that we used on the other one. But you can see a lot of the results that we did. These are the same results that we went through earlier. So I'm just going to save your time and speed through these. Now, again, just like we talked about earlier, having a system in place makes it easy and predictable to fund your business multiple six figures. We talked about who this is for: business owners who are generating revenue but are tired of using their own money, successful business owners who are already generating 6, 7, 8 figures plus, but they want to increase their buying power and create more leverage. The startup entrepreneur who is, again, overwhelmed with how they're going to fund all of these opportunities that they're envisioning and growing their company. And ultimately, people who love purchasing assets without risking their own money. We touched base again on this a little bit early on who this is not for. This is not for people who are possibly thinking about starting a business or just like the idea of getting funded. I cannot repeat that enough. We can get you access to high limits of capital. We're all about coaching you how to get access to high limits of capital, but you must have a business or something in order to invest that in, right? It's not for people who make excuses and complain, not for people who just want to learn information without being, prepared to take action and get results. We are results oriented. Everything that we do is applicable information to help you get results. And this is ultimately, again, for people who are not serious about receiving an additional 6+ figures in funding. Now, we talked about it earlier. Only two things matter. We went over a lot of things, a lot of information so far, but at the end of the day, only two things matter: doing the steps that we talked about ahead of time, setting the foundation to maximize your funding opportunities, and getting high limit approvals, right? That's literally it. We do it by, again, knowing exactly what it takes not to get denied, because when you know why everybody else is getting denied, you're able to correct the mistakes that everybody else is making, and therefore you get the opposite result, which is getting those approvals and ultimately, again, following a simplified process to achieve consistent high limit funding results. Now, a lot of people, when we talk about this, it's like, okay, what do I need to get funded in order to get access to capital, right? So let's talk about it. Now, when we're going through the funding process, we ideally want to see a 680 plus personal credit score across the board, right? That's really what you're looking for. If you have higher revenue, substantial revenue, you can vary with that a little bit. But again, you really want to be 680 plus across the board. Again, that's TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. You really want to have two major credit cards, whether it be Visa, Amex, MasterCard, Discover, whatever the case may be. You also want to ideally have them over 2 years old with a $3,000 plus limit. It can be a little, less, but these are going to put you in the best position possible to maximize. No derogatory remarks, just like I talked about earlier. No collections, no, bankruptcies, charge-offs, foreclosures, things of that nature. Now, you can have one late payment. Excuse me. You can have one late payment, but they cannot be late payments within the last 24 months. There can be no late payments at all within the last 24 months. No more than 3 new inquiries within the last 6 to 12 months. Like I said, they don't really affect your credit score too much, but they show how quote unquote credit desperate you are. So no more than 3 inquiries within the last 6 to 12 months. 2+ years average history. We're talking about business funding. So some of you may be familiar with this process. Some of you may not. I put authorized AU, which stands for authorized user. If you're familiar with authorized users, I just want to be transparent and say that they do not help you with business funding. They absolutely help you with personal funding, but with business funding, they want to see what you actually have in your personal name and what you've been personally able to manage, not by, piggybacking off of somebody else. So very important there. No new accounts within the last 6 months. You really want to show, again, that you're not really looking for active credit whenever you're going through this process, because it looks better when you're going through a funding process that it looks like you don't need money, right? Even if you do, it looks better on paper that you don't need access to capital, which is why you do all these underwriting things, right? Talked about it earlier, 1 to 30% utilization. And then just a note, business credit cards and business line of credit typically at least double the highest personal limit credit card. Now, what do you need to apply when you're going through the funding process? Now, basic details, obviously identifying information for you and your business. The common misconception is that you have to generate revenue and you have to have substantial, financial documentation in order to get funded. When you do the things that we talk about, your business does not have to generate revenue in order to get access to capital, right? You can use a lot of what we use, which is projected income or household income. So when you're projected, you can look at what your projection for your business to make, or you can use a combination of household income, which is anybody who's 18 years or older in your household. If they you obviously make income, you can use their income into consideration as well on the applications as well too, especially if you're a startup business. Now, the goal for us is to fund you $100,000, at least $100,000 plus, and this is how we make it happen in the fastest time possible. So for us, you get the opportunity to leverage our services. So what you'll do is you would submit your information, your personal and or business information. We verify that information and we go through a pre-approval qualification, right? A complimentary audit. Once you do that, you're qualified, you actually schedule a funding development session, which we actually create a funding strategy using these methods that would best fit your business. Again, during that process, just kind of like how we talked about, and then we actually run the play leveraging our funding resources. So for example, we have relationships with hundreds of bankers across the states that we can utilize in order to get you funded. Now, as a disclaimer, again, when you go through this, it's important for you to know this, is that responses take 24 to 48 hours. They might be 12 hours, but typically you can expect responses to take 24 to 48 hours. I'm very adamant with my customer support team. I'm very adamant and detailed that we, again, are very responsive and very detailed in our responses. The reason I'm saying that is because they will definitely respond within that 24 to 48 hour time period. The only time that there's ever really a delay, most common, is that somebody may have missed our email. And most common that happens because it goes to the spam or the promotional folder. So when you do this, expect the response really within 12 to 48 hours. And if it's longer than that time period, check your spam or your promotional folders. Now, for us, we go through a review process. We go through an audit. During that audit phase, we do that pre-qualification. Then you get a personal one-on-one strategy session with me or someone else on my team, but usually me, especially since you're in 7 ways, to determine the first steps that you need in order to get funded. Now, it's important for us to say this because for us, we can only take you on as a client if we can get you funded within the next 30, 60, 90 days, right? So the most common reasons that we wouldn't be able to take someone on as a client is if they have credit issues, right? So they have collections, charge-offs, late payments, things of that nature. The reason I'm saying that is because if that's you, I want to give you a solution that you can resolve those issues to qualify yourself for funding. So if for whatever, you don't have to do this if you're ready for funding, but if you have some challenges on your credit and they need to be taken care of, we want to give you applicable information so that you can get those issues resolved and move on through the funding process. So being a part of 7 Ways, we do have what's called a Foundation for Funding bundle, where you get access to a 4-week video curriculum that shows you all about personal credit repair, and personal funding so that you can resolve those personal credit issues to put you in a position to get business funding. We also give you a couple different ebooks, the 90-day playbook resource guide. It's a 90-day game plan in order for you to set up all of your business like we talked about professionally. You guys actually get this complimentary. Actually just showing up today, you get the Business Credit Made Simple ebook. Inside of the program, you do get opportunities to book one-on-one consultations with me or someone else on my support team. And then also, as mentioned, you get the DIY credit repair system. Now, typically we sell that for $1,000, but again, because you're a part of 7 Ways, you get access to that if you have credit issues that you need to be resolved for only $297. So you don't have to go pay, all these credit repair companies, things of that nature. Now, what we do is, like I said, we want to make sure that we get you through the funding process. So what we do is Christina in 7 Ways, they have a link. The very first step for you to do is submit the information on her link so that we can begin the pre-qualification process, and we can begin to determine on, hey, whether you're ready for funding right now immediately, or what process we need to go through in order to get you funded. Now, I know that we are going to give you guys some resources, so you'll see this at the end. I just wanted to make sure that you guys know everything that we went over this on this call. You'll get a copy of this presentation. In the resources, there's a couple resources available to you, and I want to make sure that you have them. So the funding development session, it'll have Christina's link in there so that you can actually, again, begin that audit process. The Foundation for Funding bundle, if you do have any credit issues, you have that bundle available for you there. And then we also give you a free ebook just by being a part of this, which talks about personal credit, different ways that you can structure your personal credit to put you in position to do so. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because when you get this PDF, all you have to do is click the name. So funding development session, Foundation for Funding bundle, or the Credit Made Simple ebook, and it will take you, the links will take you directly to what you're looking for, right? Now, I know we went through a lot. We went through really fast. I covered a lot of information. So I always do allow Q&A time at the end for us to clear up any questions or concerns that you may have. So with that being said, Christina, I'll turn it back over to you to make sure that we can get anything answered that somebody may have.
Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate you so much for coming on and pouring into the community and educating us about this very most important step when it comes to you actually funding your trust and getting money and building assets and building generational wealth. So we appreciate you so much. And I know people have questions. So we are going to open up the floor for Q&A. So please raise your hand. Also put it in the chat, whatever questions that you have for Mr. Brian Dorsey. And then if you have any questions for me as well on any of the information that I went through today. So who has questions? And I'm going to put the link in the chat right now. So just give me about a minute. So that's the link that you want to click on so that you can get in contact with Brian and his team so that they can begin the process. All right, so we have Miss Alania Bay. Hi, Miss Bay.
How y'all doing? I just yeah, I'm getting there where I need to start tapping into looking for funding because a lot of my personal credit I've been tapping into to do business and I have business like for my trust, and just different things I'm paying for out of personal funds. So I'm just curious as to how that works for like a ministry trust. My credit is pretty good. I just got eight collections deleted. They sent me in the mail, so that was very happy to see that. And my credit score, FICO score is like 744. I'm trying to get it higher, but I don't have a blemish on my credit report anymore because I've been working hard on it. I don't have any late payments. Everything is okay. So how do you think I would fit, but I don't have a lot of business credit. I just have a pretty good personal credit. I do have am over the what they call it the 30% range though. But I'm still, usually pretty much on time with the paying bills. So I was just wondering, where do you think that I would fit in for if I was trying to find funding for a business trust? Do you think I would have a pretty good shot at it?
So great question. Everything that you've mentioned so far, we have no issue getting you access to capital. Now, there's two things that I mentioned earlier. So you can absolutely get funding for a trust directly. If you want to use the trust directly, you absolutely can. It's just that there's more documentation involved in order to get a trust funded, right? So just because there's different banking, trust deals with a different banking banker than just your traditional, state entity, corporations or LLCs. So there's more documentation involved with a trust in general, especially if it's a private trust. So what I talk about is to fast track it and get you through the process as seamless as possible with the least amount of documentation possible. So for us, what we utilize and what most of our clients do is that you can absolutely use your trust, but use it more for asset protection. What we do is we'll get a state entity, whether it be an LLC or a corporation. We'll establish that entity. We'll set the foundation. We'll leverage the personal credit, because you can fast track it without having, established business credit. As long as your personal is in order, you can fast track business funding. So we would get a state entity such as LLC, corporation, whatever the case may be, go through the process, get that entity funded, and then because the trust controls it, you can do loan documents or however you want to distribute the funds from the business that got funded in order to get the funds to the trust so that it can actually carry out whatever orders that it's looking to do. So you can do it both ways. It's just that I would suggest doing the state entity first, getting access to the funds, and then having the trust maneuvered that way, as compared to getting
I had 2 LLCs, and I dissolved one of them. The other one, I had to pay fees like annual report to get it in good standing, and I did that. And so I'm thinking of dissolving that one too. But a lot of people are telling me that you can't get funding without an LLC, but I don't really want to deal with the LLC if I have trust. You know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of not sure what to exactly do with that LLC. Should I dissolve it? Should I keep it? Because seems like I'm paying fees and I'm not, doing anything with it. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to understand exactly where do I go with this LLC, or should I just stick with the trust? The trust is basically has the same name as the LLC, but I tweaked it a bit for the trust. Like Leisure Holdings is the LLC, but I'm trying to figure out how to go about if I should keep it or not. And do you think I would have a better advantage getting funding with the LLC than not keeping it?
So I can't tell you exactly what to do for your particular situation. I would just say what I would do. What I would do, best practices, I don't dissolve any LLCs. I wouldn't dissolve any LLC. I wouldn't dissolve any corporation, because they're much more valuable to me to go and get funding. Each LLC at minimal, when I think about LLC, whether it's an older business or whether it's a brand new 30-day LLC, each business that I have to meet is worth at least $50,000 in funding. So at least, and like at the bare minimum. So every LLC that I establish is worth $50,000 in leverage that I can go out and grow and purchase assets and create cash flow. So for me personally, I wouldn't, dissolve the LLCs or the corporations. I would keep them because it can help you. Now, I've also seen clients before, just like you said, they've had an LLC. It's on the verge of being, dissolved. So they owe, a bunch of state fees. I've seen clients, try to bring an LLC back, and it's like $700 to, bring their LLC back, but they could open up a brand new LLC for like $125. So I've seen, clients have entities that were older that they just didn't want to pay whatever fees. We've been able to just go open up a brand new LLC or brand new corporation, get it set up properly, and then we can go get, that funded as well too. For us, risk mitigation is the biggest thing. That's why I said I can't say for you. So for me, I personally never want my trust doing business. So for me personally, for my strategy, I have all of my LLCs or all of my corporations, all of my LLCs or corporations go out and take all the risk, get the funding, do the business, and then it just passes those funds to the trust. So that's what me personally, as well as, like I said, especially with trust, you can absolutely get them funded, but they're going to ask for more documentation. So if you're using a state entity, you can get access to capital without having to provide P&Ls, tax returns, cash flow statements, bank statements, things of that nature. If you go the trust directly, they're typically going to request financial documentation. So for example,
that's a business trust also you speaking about. What
yes,
about the foreign grantors trust? Do they, it's the same way? Well, in that case, I guess you've talked me into keeping my LLC. I mean, it's already have a registered agent, so I figure I'm kind of thinking along the lines of using that for to be a part of a to own private jets, to have ownership of a private jet with another as part owner of it. And so that's kind of where along the lines that I'm thinking about using it. Why private jets? Because that's where the money is at. I mean, you can charter those things, you can rent them out, for people to fly privately. It's just, that's kind of why I got the leisure holding type name, because it's leisurely, things of leisure. And I thought about doing that type of thing. So that's kind of where my head is at. I want to, if I'm going to go, I'm going to go big. I don't want to just be um, on the sidelines, just dealing with a lot of paperwork. I want to be able to think big, invest in that type of asset. And yeah, that I would definitely have to go for the big money. So sitting here listening to you about the LLC, that probably is my best bet, to stick with that, because since my credit is pretty good, I've been working about at least about a good 6 months on it, so I've had payments, all of my payments are on time. I'm never late. So I don't know. I think I have a pretty good shot. I really do. As a matter of fact, I know I do, because I know me. So, but yeah, that's kind of where I wanted to ask you about that LLC, and the funding with that, how that would go, and also with the trust, because now I have what, 3 trusts, 1 LLC, and about to get into a foreign grantors trust. So it's a lot. I'm just gonna give it to God, and see where He takes me.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I would definitely suggest LLCs, corporations, and then keep your trust more, more private,
Right.
more secure. But that's something that, like I said, based on what we've talked about, you shouldn't have any issues being funded. But the best way for me to advise you would be for you to submit your information through Christina, just so that we can actually see the credit report, see what it looks like, all of that, see what your LLCs look like, to see what the best first steps would be to do in order to get you access to the capital.
Okay, sounds good. You heard that, Christina?
Yes, ma'am. I heard it. I definitely will highly recommend, keep your LLC for funding purposes, right? You don't have to do anything with it, but get the money from the bank and then
So
use
you
it.
say submit my credit report to Christina? Is that what you said?
No, so go ahead and click the link that's in the chat, and then it's a questionnaire. They're gonna ask you some information so that they could pull up your profile, and then you'll get in contact with Brian and his team so that they can direct you on the next steps.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
You're so welcome. And
Oh,
it's a really good idea, especially because you're in the 700s. So that's awesome. And me too. I have an LLC, and it's the identical same name as my trust. So I have
Yeah.
two entities that are called Seven Ways to Wealth. One is a LLC, one is a trust. So they're
Mm-hmm.
separate, they're separate entities, and they both have their own EINs and own bank accounts. So you can definitely like do it that way. That's the way that you're doing it, where they have similar names. So go for
Okay.
it, Miss A. Go for it. Go for it.
Okay, I'm just have I'm trying to get all my eggs in one basket. You wouldn't believe all the paperwork you see on my paperwork, my
Mhm.
desk. It's just
Yeah, I
full
know.
of stuff.
But you're
But
you're getting it done. So
I
congratulations.
as a former social worker, I'm not scared of paperwork, but it's just that when I had the surgeries and stuff, it just put me behind. So I'm trying to play catch up.
Yeah. So let us know if you need any support, and let me know if you need me to text you that link, but it's in the chat,
That would
okay?
that would really be awesome,
Yeah,
because
I'll
I don't
text you.
I
I'll text
don't
you
have,
now.
I can't find, I don't, I'm not on your regular, what I see, is this business credit and funded specialist? Is that
Yeah.
the link?
Yeah, that's the link.
Okay.
You got
Okay.
it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, next we have Kenya. Hey, Kenya.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good. How are you?
So I'm a little bit confused with when it comes to the funding. From my understanding, when it came to funding, once you open a trust account and you get like a dumb number and get credit card and transfer access, doesn't that help create credit to be able to take a loan under the trust account?
It absolutely does. That's what I'm saying. You can get a trust funded directly. There's no issue. You can get a trust funded the same way you can get an LLC or a corporation funded. The only thing is that it absolutely builds trust credit. It absolutely does all that. The only thing is that there's more documentation and more paperwork involved in order to get the trust established or in order to get the trust funded, just because it's a different department, and especially when you're dealing with private trust. So they're going to ask for a lot. If your trust is, if you don't mind sharing your private information, you're more than welcome to do that. Or if you don't mind providing all of the financial documentation that will be requested, such as pay stubs, P&Ls, tax returns, cash flow statements, things of that nature, then you can absolutely get the trust funded directly as well. So there's no difference. It's just there's more paperwork and more documentation involved with getting the trust funded directly. But as long as you have all of it, you can absolutely get it, funded as well.
But then that would be practically a lost cause of keeping yourself private then. So I guess it would be better to go your route.
That's why I was saying that's what I prefer to do. I prefer to keep my trust private, behind the scenes, no risk. Use LLCs and corporations to do business, do business on the front end and go and get the funding. And then I just pass the funding to my trust, or the businesses perform on behalf of the trust because the trust controls it. So it's performing on behalf of the trust to carry out duties or, do certain business on behalf of the trust. But I personally do not expose my trust. That's me personally. I just found it better to not do so. I'd rather open up LLCs and corporations all day that, they mean something to me, obviously, but like they're just entities. They're just state entities. It's just paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll set state entities and paperwork for entities that are not as important to me or private to me as my trust.
But even if you, because I'm planning to transfer a couple of properties into my family trust, even if you have those type of assets, even to get funding, you have to go do all that paperwork?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Any other questions?
Thank you,
Um,
Kenya.
No, thank you. You answer it. Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, next we're gonna move to Alexis. Hi, Alexis. How are you?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Hey, how are you doing, Mr. Dorsey?
I'm good. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very well, thank you. Great presentation, very thorough. I have an extensive background in business credit, and I've had a lot of experience with it. So I found your teaching very helpful. And I like the fact, but you get into a lot more detail than a lot of specialists do. They skip over a lot of details, and you're really good at breaking down the real simple stuff. Because I had to be reminded about stuff. I was like, oh yeah, I haven't been doing that, so I really appreciate that. Because you got me kind of rethinking the LLCs, which I can't stand them, but I have a couple and I have an S Corp, and I, years and years of experience with it. And I live in California. So, it's like, we like the high taxation state, Now I'm not mad because I love California and I will not be moving anywhere else, but because you can do a lot of things in California you can't do anywhere else. But, but there are these avenues when it comes to taxes and dealing with state controllers, and you know what I'm saying? But you reminded everyone on the call, like, look, if you entity get in trouble, you owe them taxes, just dump it and open a new one and keep it moving. You know what I mean? You can open it and guarantee it first, build up your net 30s and build on that, which is good, because you don't get the high lines right away because you may not have the tier structure right away to do it. And I recognize that. But I was kind of thinking, when you're saying, my question to you is that you were saying that dealing with the trust to fund directly, you have to open yourself up to the P&Ls and all your finances, which you're right, you don't want to do it. You definitely want to be able to use the LLCs because the banks are trained to fund. They don't care about your income. You give them, what do you expect to earn? Okay, I expect to earn, $950 this year. What do you expect? What is your cash flow? You just give them a number and they do it. You know what I mean? As long as you're not a risk, they just give you the funding. And so you reminded me about that because I was just like, I'm so sick of these dang LLCs, you know, because it gets into a lot of statutory stuff that runs interference with the trust.
Of
And I'm a
course.
real estate investor. So that's why I'm just kind of like, how do I want to play this? Because I have a property now that I probably will put in my business. Well, I have to put in my business trust because my tenant gets some subsidies. So that kind of complicates the way I would have liked to have done the deal for her. But I have a couple other properties that I could do it differently, put them in the private trust and make different agreements, you know.
Absolutely.
But when I look at the funding, because I like being able to get access to funding, I just did a round of funding for a new LLC that I opened. Did I open it this year? I think I opened it this year. I didn't do too many accounts. I only did like a couple, not really big lines. I think my biggest one is 3,000 because I didn't give them any income or anything like that. And I did it with, and one of them was with Capital One. And, you know, they get on my nerves because they want to report to your personal credit. And I
Yeah.
had just paid the credit line down and I was talking to the guy that I usually use. And I was like, you know, this is the problem. You know what I mean? You have to be able to deal with these banks and keep them off your personal credit. But you kind of, they're starting to change their policies where now you have to be careful that you're staying under 30%. You're not using your personal lines if you're using personal credit, because you might wind up with an account on your credit report. It could happen. It hasn't happened to me too many times. Like I just recently had an incident with Goldman Sachs, and because my mother had just passed, I had a credit line with them under my S corp, and all the stuff I've been dealing with, getting all of the estate business in order, and I've been making these changes because I'm moving the properties into the pure trust and moving out of the revocables, because that whole thing opened up my eyes to the changes that happened in California in the last 2 years, where they're trying to force property owners to give up these properties. So they want to hit you with new estate taxes and they want to reassess, and it just blew my wig back. I was so done with it. I was so done. It has been on my last, and I'm determined to make sure this doesn't happen, you know, to my heirs, because my mom planned really well, but it just happened only the last couple of years. It wasn't something that she was aware of, because by that time she had slowed down quite a bit, and I had been helping her manage things. But when I look at this thing with the state, you're right about the LLCs being able to position the funding, because it's fast, it's quick, and there's no issue. However, I want to ask you a question, because I did something, and this is something, you know, as funders, we don't do this, but I did it because it was something I had to do. So I had an issue with Goldman Sachs. I had a big line with them, 12,005. It was on my S corp, which I've had started to have some little issues with, because it kind of ran interference to the window of time I was caring for my mom. And after a while, I just stopped keeping track of, you know, paying on the accounts. And, you know, I don't really have, but a couple of them with balances. But the Goldman Sachs I paid off, and the other bank accounts, they're in good shape, but they've got a few lates, which I think I can fix if I can. I ain't gonna worry about it. But what I did with Goldman Sachs, because they hit me with the late, which I had, you know, I have a 800 credit score. They hit me with the late, and it landed on my personal credit report, and I just happened to catch it. So me, because of my credit background, I was like, I'll just pay the line off and close it, because it'll close the line. It takes it off my personal credit report. You know, I called them and closed it, and they were like, well, you don't want to keep the credit card, and because I've had it a year and a half. And I'm thinking, because then I got to turn around and send out a letter to see if you'll do a goodwill removal. And then I got to see if you're going to pull it off my credit report. And I got to spend all this energy behind this one credit line when I know I can get other credit lines because I have other entities. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to spend my time when I need to keep my personal credit tight, because I invest in real estate. And I need to be able to go out and get financing, which, you know, sometimes I need my credit, sometimes I don't, because I have other ways to get the funding. But it just was something I ran into, and I'm just glad I was in a position that I could pay it off. I had the cash flow, you know what I mean? But when people don't have the cash flow, you know what I mean, they just wind up being messed up with a 30-day late. And I hadn't had a late payment, gosh, probably since college, you know. But anyway, I say that to say, you know, because it brings my credit scores back up, you know, because I have low balances on everything else. But I know that on your end as a funder, you're like, no, we don't close the lines.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It hurts me.
Yeah, but
they close it, like they close businesses and close credit cards. I'm like, oh no.
But you know, in this case, I had to decide where I want to spend my energy. Do I want to spend all my time You know what I'm saying? Because this ain't my first rodeo with this credit stuff. I know I'm a pretty knowledgeable of the game. I did credit restoration for 20 years, but at some point you cannot spend all 6-7 months battling with the lender, battling with the credit bureaus for one late to take off a line. And you trying to buy credit, I have properties. I can do a refi. I can get cash forever. You know what I mean? Why do I want to spend my time doing that? That doesn't make any sense. For me, it wasn't a good use of my time, because I know I can get credit lines elsewhere. I have other entities, but and I definitely want to partner with you because I like the way you strategize, because my other guy is not strategizing like that. So but I just had to say that, listen, Christina, because I got one good entity that's really in great shape. The other two having some little challenges. Nothing I don't think we can correct or anything, but I just wanted to say that because you want to be able to start with that personal credit, because if they look at that and know that you're paying on they might not even check for your credit, but they're going to at least check to verify your identity and verify that you're a good risk at a minimum.
Right. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? To verify that, you know what I'm saying? And I just thought, I want to keep my train on the track. I used to want to be right. Let me just go after you because you're wrong. And I need to, because I have a legitimate reason for what happened. I could have sent them my mom's death certificate. They'd have been like, oh yeah, we'll do it. But it's a process. Dealing with these lenders, they're machines. They don't have no kind of customer service. They don't care. They don't care. Everything's automated. And you have to, it's like you gotta be strategic and pick and choose your battles. You know what I mean? And I just felt that was a battle that I could win with my money. So I did it, I pulled the trigger because my credit means more than that issue. And I knew I have things I wanted to fix, but I wanted to say that I wanted to just let you know that I saw what you were projecting with the LLCs, and I said, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stick with that because I wasn't gonna do it because I don't want to give them P&Ls,
Right.
But now let me ask you a question on a separate note. My newest LLC, I think I funded it this year. I'm gonna check the date. Do you only recommend that you can do something in 2 years? Because I did some funding, but I just had to do PGs because they were lenders. I did it with US Bank, Capital One, and one other one. But I didn't do net 30s.
Okay. So to answer your question, net 30s are not a requirement. They can help with the verification of your business just to make it a little easier and more identifiable, but they're not required.
Right.
Obviously, the older the business, the access to more funding it can get.
Right.
Specifically, primarily when we're looking for age of business, we look for 2 years just because you can get access to that business line of credit and not just those business.
I have one that's 2 years or more. I do. Yeah.
Perfect. So you can just access more.
Yeah, I need to go back and look at the scores though, because I think my experience is in trouble because I had a couple lates, but I can sometimes go back and have them correct them and, go back and correct the lates because it happened during this time. My mother just died in January, so things got a little hectic during the holiday months because she was starting to slow down a lot. So I had some issues there. And I'll see, because I don't want to get rid of my entities because I got one of them that's built up really nice. It's 3 or 4 years old. And I hated to do it because I've got my Lowe's and my Home Depot and my Conoco 76 and gas card. And I have a Chase Inc. account.
Nice.
It's in good shape. Yeah, the Goldman Sachs was the one that really kind of went down. Well, it was only a 30-day late, but because it was on my personal credit, I just was like, I'm not pissed to play with y'all.
Right. And I mean, honestly,
because once they report it, they don't take it off. It stays.
That's all I was gonna say. So the way that it depends on, I don't know your dispute strategy, right? I have a lot of conversation with people who've done a lot of familiar. I can't speak for your dispute strategies just because I don't know.
Oh, I didn't dispute it. I didn't bother.
But
I didn't even bother to dispute it. I didn't do that. I mean, I could have, but I just, again, looking at the direction I was going in my business and the things that I've established, because everything else is running like tip-top shape. I just didn't think, I really didn't want to invest that time in the dispute process. I could have, because I've done goodwill letters and, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, you know what I mean? But I just knew I wanted to be able to pick up the funding and move forward. And I knew that all I had to do was remove that account and I would be straight. I didn't
Right.
have to worry about it. It was just easy. You know what I mean? It just was like, why spend my energy doing that? Because I didn't have any other credit issues because I just did a refi on one of my properties. So I had just gotten, funded and I didn't have any issues. I had 800 score and I didn't have no problems. So I didn't want to, be messing around like that. So I thought I'll just pay it and move on and they were like, no, you don't want to close with us. And I'm thinking, yes, I do. Goldman was like, really? Yeah, gotta go.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because that way I could do, that way I can call you and get something cracking. I would have been dealing with some other stuff, But okay, I saw that you said on your statement that, on that profile, one of the slides that you put up, that you like to see a personal credit line, a person's account at a minimum of 3,000. Is that a hard requirement? Because I think mine is 2,000.
It's not a hard requirement. It's just when every time I teach, it's to maximize the opportunity.
Okay.
We've been able to fund people who, had $1,000 credit limit. Like we've been able to fund people who have 30-day-old businesses. We've been able to fund people who have, 5 or 6 accounts. It's just, it really varies. That's why I was talking about when we go through the funding process, the score really does not matter.
Yeah, because I have but I do have some personal loans that are larger amounts. Okay, I just want to clarify that because I said, okay. Okay, then I'll make sure I'll get your link from Christina.
Perfect.
Look, I know, yeah, because I can.
That's what I was
like,
gonna say.
I'm the cheerleader.
Huh?
I said I'm the cheerleader.
But the main thing I wanted you to know was that you re-enthused me with the LLCs because I was fixing to let them suckers go, man. I was like, golly.
I know before she spoke to you yesterday, she was ready to
I'm so tired of them. Oh my goodness.
I'm telling you, leverage, like it's just paperwork, like LLC.
That's all they're good for is the funding. They're not good for nothing else.
That's it.
They're not good
for what
for
you can use them for.
Absolutely nothing. They have no value whatsoever. I'm like, man, because I just told Christina that yesterday. I'm like, girl, tired of these LLCs. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dorsey. I appreciate you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much, Alexis, for your enthusiasm. We love it. I'm just soaking it in over here.
Okay.
Yeah, I love the passion. So that's how I am too.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, but I have 2 LLCs that I'm just like, working them little by little. And it's for funding because I'm in real estate. So it's just easier. Like one of them, I'm getting a mortgage on it right now, and I'm just gonna deed it over at closing to the trust. So to me, the purpose mainly is just using it as a tool for funding.
Yes. And I've always done that, but it was for business when I was doing service businesses. And when I decided to kind of suspend my consulting company, because I was just like, gosh, man, I feel like I'm just spinning around. So I went and I was able to kind of really get, the footing in my real estate. I was just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna move on this. And I got it going and got my team and my property people and my, my maintenance folks and my general contractors rolling. I said, I have all this stuff in place. And I thought, okay. And then I found a really good loan and a good local lender. I was so glad, because I use the DSCR loan, and that's gangster if you can get one of those. Gangster.
Yep, I love it. That's what I'm getting right now, a DSCR.
The DSCR. Oh yeah, man.
We
man,
have
my loan was done. My loan was done in 12 days flat. It was fast.
Yeah, it
was fast. And I got a guy here locally. Someone introduced me to, man, he was bomb. It worked out really good. It was really, really good. So I thought, okay, this is great.
Yeah, we have a DSCR specialist in the community as well. So,
oh, you do? That's good.
Yeah, he did a masterclass for us like maybe 3 weeks ago. So I'll have him come back. I'll have him come on a monthly basis. So there's like probably a couple of trustees, like maybe 4 or 5 trustees that are in that process with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know about that loan. My friends who have, I have a couple girlfriends who own investment property, and they're always, we're waiting on the interest rate to go down. And I thought, you guys got to learn this interest rate game. This is not how it works. They just don't get it. It's like, this isn't how it works, you guys. I'm like, and even if you could, and even the people, like when I used to help first time buyers, and I was trying to get them to get on these loans and programs when California had them, right? It's in the early part of the pandemic, you could still get good interest rates. And people were telling me, oh, I'm going on vacation. And I'm like, you know what? That's why you butt's going to stay renting, because you don't want to sacrifice and do what you got to do.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And now you stuck, now your rents is going up and you're
Yep.
moving around. And I'm like, anyway,
Yeah.
don't get me started about that. But
Yeah.
I do have another question though. So, huh?
Oh, somebody's off of mute. Hold on.
Oh, somebody's
Okay,
on mute. Okay.
go for it. Go for it.
I'm wondering, because I had worked with a lender where I was able to establish a line of credit. I had $1 million line of credit, and it was private equity, and I was able to get it with 10%. And I'm thinking about going back and using them because I'd like to use it for another property, because I really don't want to put up the 25% here for this, because I'm looking at a duplex and I'm trying to buy both sides of the building. But I'm thinking I need to find another private equity lender, you know what I mean, where we can negotiate those interest rates. When you start getting into these multiplexes where you're getting 2 buildings, or you want a triplex or a fourplex, DSCRs are cool, but they want that 25% down. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you need private equity for those kinds of deals, and you need a little different structure.
I have a lender for you. I have a lender.
You do? Okay, I need that, because I'm just kind of like, my
they're
deal is
based
good,
in,
but I'm like, dude, I don't want to give you this
Dallas.
20. Plus, I want to be able to fund this UIL. I want to be able to fund all that, and I'm trying to set it up that I can get that cash coming back in, that that monthly return. So I'm holding steady right now before I do a deal, because I want to be able to get that money every month. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and then I can use that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna write. I'm
working this thing. I'm not playing.
So I can pass that information to you. So let me write this down so I could pass that information.
Yeah.
I'll email that over to you today, Alexis.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'm just kind of like, I see something I want, but it's like,
yeah,
need the numbers to be a little different.
Yeah, I'll plug you in with the creme de la creme.
Creme de la creme. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I got you on the list here.
Appreciate it.
So we got a few more questions, and then we are going to wrap it up, you guys. So Tracy has a question, and I see let me see, Dee has a question too. Okay, so Tracy, do you want to come off mute?
Hello.
Hey.
Hi. I'm driving right now. Sorry. So
no problem.
I got you on Bluetooth. So I'm looking to go into real estate investing. I haven't started anything yet, but I know that's something that I want to do. But I know that, real estate investing is high risk. So how do I structure my LLC to start with, to avoid that?
Great question. So for the beginning, we work with real estate investors a lot. In the beginning, to structure, you are correct that real estate is high risk. There's a couple others that we work with a lot, like trucking, that's high risk as well too. You can absolutely get funding for it. It's more about your NAICS code, right? Which is it's a classification code. So what we do, that your business is for real estate, but what we do is we put a more general name on it. So for example, yours might be, again, this is just a generic, but it could be Tracy Consulting or Tracy Enterprises. We put an enterprises, solutions, management, something of that nature, whenever we're getting funding for quote unquote high risk industries such as trucking or real estate. And then what we do for application purposes, when we set these entities up, we either do when you're going back to NAICS code, because that's how banks really classify you, we're either going to do 541613, which is a marketing consulting NAICS code. That's the main consulting NAICS code that we use, or 541611, which is a management consulting. But typically we just use a consulting and a more general enterprises or solutions name, go through and get the funding, and then you just allocate those funds again to whatever real estate deal that you're trying to get done. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Perfect. You're welcome.
All right, thank you. And then Dee put in the chat, she wants to know, do you deal with shelf corporations? Is there any way to get funding without using personal credit at all?
So as far as shelf corporations, I'm not sure if you mean, do we offer shelf corporations or if we can fund shelf corporations? We do both. We do offer shelf corporations. Yes, if you do need age and you want to get access to, like I said, business lines of credit, or, you want to bypass, starting up a new company. Yes, we absolutely do offer shelf corporations, and we are very familiar with, funding age corporations and getting them set up to get funding as well too. Now, the second question is there any way to get funding without using your personal credit? Yes, there is. Now there's a couple different ways. So for one, you can go the longer rate. That's why I said this conversation was more about business funding. And, you know, it does build business credit, but business credit is much longer because it's a longer way. So you can build out net 30s, you can build out net 60s, you can establish vendor accounts, and you can build up your business credit the same way that you can build up your personal credit by attaching accounts. Now, you need substantial limits, not these $100, $500 limits. You're going to need some good trade lines on there, like 1,000, excuse me, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 plus trade lines attached to your business credit to really get to point where, so there's personal credit, there's business credit, there's business funding, and there's corporate credit. Corporate credit is the difference between, you can get business credit and business funding by leveraging your personal credit to build business credit and to access business funding. You need to establish your business credibility, whether through unsecured financing or through business credit, in order to build up the credibility of your business to eventually graduate to corporate credit. Corporate credit is where you get financing solely based on the business. So it is possible to get corporate credit or funding without using your personal credit, but you have to have good, really strong business credit, looking for like 10 lines, 10 trade lines between $1,000 and $10,000 plus, or you need substantial revenue. So when I say substantial revenue, like 2 million plus per year, you can start to look into funding based just on the business. But I want to say this, and it's very important for me to say this because a lot of people miss this. When you're doing corporate credit, there's absolutely, you can get corporate credit without having put your personal name. The thing that you want to understand is that in the banking industry, it's more of a risk for the institutions to give a corporate funding just because there's not a personal guarantee behind it. Possible, but I just want you to be aware that your interest rates are going to be higher with corporate funding as compared to any time there is some kind of personal name built. But yes, it is possible to build it up where you do not have to use your personal credit at all. I hope that answers your question, D. I'm watching the chat if it did, or if you have any other questions, but I hope that answered your question for you.
It did, and I'm going to set up an appointment with you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I look forward to talking to you very soon.
Thank you. Likewise.
All right. Any other last questions before we close the workshop for today? Any other last questions? Going once, going twice. All right. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. You guys have been absolutely amazing, asking the best questions. And I do have homework for you guys. So what I want to do is, now that we already finished our 3 trusts, so Monday we set up our business trust, Tuesday we set up our private family trust, and yesterday we set up our ministry trust. I want you to post in the chat when you're actually going to finalize your trust and get them notarized, right? So we want to hold you accountable and make sure that you actually get it done. So go ahead and let us know when you are going to do that, so that we can hold you accountable, me, Ika, and the rest of the team, okay? And then now tomorrow, we're gonna meet tomorrow. The thing is, our guest speaker, she is double booked for 12 o'clock. So the only time that she is available is 9 o'clock in the morning. So I want to ask you guys if you want to meet at 9 a.m. so that you can get the training on infinite banking with the insurance policy. So you guys vote. Let me know. If not, then we won't be able to have her do the training this week. And next week, we would have to have a separate session specifically for her. So Dee said yes. Who else wants to?
We're good.
Who's that?
Alexis.
Alexis. Okay.
I'm good.
Let me see. Let me look in the chat. Okay. Jamel said yes. Anthony. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it's Eastern Standard Time. So that's going to be 6 a.m. for Alexis, you guys, and whoever else is
Talking about tomorrow?
Tomorrow, Friday.
So
that's
no more
6
12
I gotta be
o'clock?
on the call at 6 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah, it's 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So are you guys down for that?
Oh,
So
we
you
have moved
canceling
from
the 12
yesterday.
p.m.?
Correct, correct. So instead of us meeting at 11, we would actually meet 2 hours early. So we would meet at 9 instead of 11.
Shucks, I made a doctor's appointment.
Okay, and so California, that means that's 7, 8 to 9.
Right.
That's 6
Exactly.
for
Hold on,
me.
hold on. Let me see. Yep. That's 6 a.m. I know.
All right, I'm glad you let me know because I forget put
Right,
yeah,
right. Because
hopefully,
you thinking 9 a.m. your time. I know.
yeah, because I'm thinking,
Listen,
okay,
I
12,
know
9 a.m.
it's getting complicated. It's getting complicated.
Oh, we have moved from yesterday. Okay, I see what happened.
Yeah,
Okay.
So Christina, if we don't meet at 9, when will we conclude the last day? If we can't do it, for those that can't do it at 9.
Okay, so then you would have to go, based off of the recording. So if we're gonna meet at 9 a.m., then we're gonna do the 3 hours. So she's gonna come on for the first hour, and then I will finish off for the last 2 hours, and we'll go through
Okay,
everything.
I'm okay with it. That's fine. 6 a.m. is fine.
Yeah. So that's so our other option is if you guys want to push it back. If it's too early and if you want to push it back later on, like push it back 2 hours, then we could do that as well. So it's up to you guys, but I think she said that she only really had like 9 a.m. So if you want to do that, then we would meet early. If you guys are not okay with that, then she will have to have a separate session next week.
How soon would the recording be available if the one she does tomorrow?
So it's available an hour after we're done with the entire 3-hour workshop.
Okay.
So it
Thank
would probably be available by like 1, 2 p.m. in the afternoon EST.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, okay.
Mm.
All right. So are we meeting at 9 or are we going to keep our same time?
I think 9 is fine. 6 a.m. for the California girl. Whoop, whoop.
Right? Yes.
I think it just stay with the schedule. It gets off when we have to change days. I think we should flow with what we got.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get with her. I'm just going to, double confirm everything, and then I'll send a mass text to you guys later today, and then we will go from there.
Is that Gerda?
Yes, absolutely.
Is that Gerda?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I need to be on that because I need to find out what happened with my appointment.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll be there at 9
Okay.
o'clock. I don't think
Okay, sounds
I
good.
have
All right.
anything.
So you have your homework. So tomorrow we're going to meet. So most likely we're gonna meet. I am gonna send you guys a mass text just to, keep you guys accountable and updated. So we're gonna meet tomorrow. You guys are gonna get the email with the resources and links that you're gonna need. So it's gonna have the Zoom link and it's gonna have the resources. Tomorrow we're gonna focus on transferring assets. Okay. So we're gonna do quit claim deeds, bill of sales, business purchase agreements, and then I'll show you how to do amendments through the Secretary of State. And then we're gonna be going over infinite banking with our specialist. So that is it for today. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. So just look out for your text messages so that you can get any updates or changes or anything like that. And you guys have a blessed and amazing day. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
You're
Have
so
a great day,
welcome.
everybody.
You too. God bless you, everybody. Bye-bye.